All right, welcome back to another episode of OneTake, brought to you as always by our friends at the TAB. It's the home of rugby league punting here in New Zealand, so if you are going to have a flutter this weekend, make sure you download the app or head along to their website, www.tab.co.nz, and as always, please gamble responsibly. But I'm joined on the couch by my mate, and it's been a few weeks since we last caught up, so Mont, how are you, mate? How's things been?
Yeah, I'm good. I mean, if you compare this year to the same time last year, you'd think it would be feeling more of what the Bulldogs are feeling, riding into the final series going, we're going to make that top four. Yes, we're going to make the top four. We're going to go all the way to grand final. So what a difference a year makes. But I think that game sort of pretty much summed up how a year has been. There was some brilliance, there was some resilience, there was some X factor, but not enough at crucial times or for long enough period. There was moments where you go, well, that sums up our season, right? It's been one of those games, mate, but plenty to like still. And I'm no doubt we'll talk about that.
Yeah, for sure. Like you touched on there, you walk away proud, and I feel like we can say that about the majority of games this season because everyone's leaving it all out there. You can't fault the effort. Down 20 points to 6 at halftime, to come back and force golden point, and then to go down to a bit of individual brilliance from Sean O'Sullivan. That was some knock. But what for you were the biggest positives and takeaways from that game that the team can look to roll into towards these last 3 games of the season?
I think it was just that, being down 20 points to 6, with the man who's already spent 2 minutes in the sin bin, another 8 minutes to come out of there from halfway, but they came back, they scored first, and in that period of time when it was 20 points to 6, we probably scored some of our best tries. There was some brilliant moves or manoeuvres, but I think one guy in particular that I get pretty excited about, when you think about his debut match against Canberra, against the guy who's played 300 games, he wasn't in awe. He went off late in that game with a hamstring. But from that moment then, I knew that Leiataua was meant to be in this grade. And, played against Penrith, played with an injury within the first 5 minutes. And he played to such a level that was to be proud of, and they were able to win that game in Magic Round. But then again on the weekend, there was some absolutely brilliant stuff from this. What I like about this kid is his physicality straight away, because he had his bumpers up and he actually went one-on-one with former Kiwi captain there, Jesse Bromwich, and bumped him off. That's the physicality he has, but then also the beautiful touches, that pick up to score that try off the Tamati pass that went to ground, that play that he made, that break out of his own end to put Chance away, but Chance wasn't quite able to get him that ball. Then he just dropped the ball over the line and he went off. Now, just in that moment, I thought we were going to really see from Ali him take over the game and go on to actually win it for us. So, that's one kid that I've been admiring and watching, along with some of these other kids throughout the season when they've debuted and they came on. We saw him come back into grade, and that's Sefakula. Yeah. And Demi scored a great try. He did not look out of place. It's been a while since he played big, strong, physical against a no impact for that physicality. So, there's plenty to like about it, Benny.
For sure. I've actually got in my notes here a number of individual standout performances. You've touched on 2 of them, so we'll dive into Ali first a little deeper. And for me, he was just outstanding on attack in particular. Had a try, 2 line breaks, 147 metres off 11 carries. Unfortunately, copped a bit of friendly fire there from Koss with the knee into the head. That's just young boys having a good time, right? But 3 tries in 5 games, probably should have had another. And I love the way he's got that silky hands. He can play his winger into space. He looks really strong offensively, but defensively, he goes after people too, right? And he may have had a couple misses on the weekend, but you can tell he wants to dominate those collisions. He looks like he has massive potential on both sides of the ball.
Benny, that's when he scored that try and he got up. You could see it in his eyes. He said, let's go. I really thought it was going to be a coming-of-age game for him. I thought he was going to really finish that game strong and really make a difference out there on the left edge. I think, when he got that try, that he missed the opportunity to ground the ball. He had a start early on in the match. He made the initial break. He made sure he kept it alive, and then he was there to potentially finish it off. Unfortunately, he didn't finish it off, and he should have finished it off. I think what got crossed his mind was he had to go around the post and be closer in to score the try. So that sort of little pass made him fumble the ball, but he is special across a number of different factors in his game. What I love about him is his physicality, his want to go after the match, similar to Mitch Barnett, defensively, offensively, realising he's got the ability to break a game open or to dent the line or have some momentum for his team. And for a guy of a young age to do that and to go after it, it's good. He doesn't have out-and-out speed or that top-end speed, but geez, he can break a line. He's got wonderful feet. He's got, that slight touch of hands that we've seen on a number of occasions. I think just the week previously was the little tap-on pass for Roger to score a try. He's got it all. And the other great thing about him is, like, a lot of the good kids coming through is that they are coachable.
Yeah.
And that is the huge thing on top of it all is you can have all the ability in the world, you can have all the X factor, but if you're not coachable, your ceiling gets to a point pretty quick. And we're seeing in the NRL, we're seeing from last year to this year that, levels go up. So you've got to make sure that you're ready for it as an individual or even as a team.
I was going to ask about that because you mentioned Ali with the let's go, and you can tell he carries himself with a bit of swagger on the field. Off the field, though, guys like him, Demitric, these next lads coming through, what are they like? I can imagine they're pretty humble.
Look, I reckon they're like caged lions because they've got swagger naturally. They've got X factor, and they want to be loud. They're very much like Brian Tu'u and Critter and all the boys over there at Penrith. Once upon a time coming through, but they're being respectable. They're biding their time. They're staying within the limits of where you should be in terms of showing respect. But on the field, in the wrestling, on the mats, they're out there this year, unlike last year, really competing and showing the alphas of the team or the players in the team that have that leadership, have that direction and that experience, that they're just as good as them. So I've been really loving the journey and the progress of these young guys coming through. And, I think it was Jacob Laban who said after his debut, during that COVID period, a lot of people left. They wanted to go overseas, but we wanted to hold it down for this club, for this jumper that we care about. And we're seeing that come through. Zion Mo'u, Leka Halasima, Jacob Laban, Ali Leiataua, like there is some absolute brilliant talent there at a very young age. Moala Graham, Tolfa into the mix. There is some real ability. And just on the weekend, Toby Crosby, who scored a try from the kickoff. Now, I'm not about all of that sort of flash stuff and people get excited and they talk him up. But once again with Toby, the biggest thing about him is he's a great kid. He wants to be a good student. He wants to learn, and he comes in weekly with Grant Pocklington, and he wants to understand what he needs to be doing better. And there's a lot of things he needs to be doing better. But in terms of ability, X factor and potential, man, he's got it all.
Yeah, Toby certainly gets us excited. There's more about him to come too, because I got a few questions for you around Tobes as well. But back to Demitric, 12 minutes, so not a massive amount of time, but 50 metres, a couple line breaks, a try, a friendly fire headbutt on Tamari as well in his try celebration. So he carries that energy too. But for me, the most impressive part was he's come back from this ACL injury, which as a young player is not easy to come back from. Playing in a physically demanding position, he's moved to the middle. He's looking big, he looks strong, he looks powerful, and he's got that enforcer about him, doesn't he? Like, this kid has a massive future in the middle.
Oh, you missed the word out. You said enforcer, which means he's scary, because he is scary. He's the modern day enforcer in terms of, like, he can put a shot on, he can carry strong and put a dent in your line. If you look at him, you think twice about before you want to take him on. He's got that physicality about him again. And the other good thing about Demi is he knows the game. He speaks about the game. His IP on the game is very good. I often come in and overhear them talking in between sets or in between training moves or sessions, and I just hear him talking about it, and he understands it. And he's one of the leaders within the young group of men that we see coming through. Ali Leiataua was another one. They actually all are. And they've got to care for each other. That reminds me of the early 2000s when Motu Tony, Henry Fa'afili, Francis Smelly, all these guys were coming through, and it's like they've got their own language. They love each other's company, and they'll do anything for each other. So that excites me, when we've got some absolute legends of the club leaving, to have these young guys coming through who care so much about the jersey, and seeing what also is coming through the pathways as well. I'm having a little bit with them and watching just in the weekend gone. Gets me excited, man.
From some rookies to some vets, and I wanted to shout out three of the lads in our back five, in Chance, Dell and Roger, who normally when you speak about them, you talk about highlight reels, right? Roger's footwork, Dell's ability to finish tries that you think are genuinely impossible. You got Chance with that massive motor and just non-stop effort, but together they ran for over 650 metres. Yeah. Their workout of Yardage over the last kind of month, 6 weeks, has been crazy. Multiple times they're taking 2 or 3 carries in a set as well. Just touch a little on the work of those three.
Yeah, well, look, I think we're one of the top 2 or 3 teams in the competition for yardage. It hasn't been a problem because, as you mentioned, our OBs, our outside backs get up and they're able to produce that. Then you got the likes of Adam and Mitch getting on the back end of that and really enjoying, getting the ball at the 30 or the 40-metre line as opposed to carrying those hard carries out of your own 10 or 20. So that's impressive. I was watching Rogers' game when I watched it back because it was hard to watch it live because I had a few friends over and you get a little bit distracted. I watched it back and I just thought it was one of Rogers' better games in terms of he was involved early in the sets, he was involved late in the sets, and he was involved in a number of different ways. Now, he had a really tough ask against playing against Farnworth as well, who we found Farnworth, and he's a brilliant player, but just those two going at it and what Roger was able to do, and I just feel he's starting to find his feet a little bit more now, and it has been hard for Roger because he's been in a number of different positions and he's been on different sides of the field, and even then you've got different guys inside him and outside him, which hasn't been easy because this is a guy who was a legend of the game, but he's still just coming back, having two years off or such, and then that's a different sort of fitness and finesse that you find with it. So I watched that back and I really admired what Roger was able to do. We've seen him at fullback being just as destructive also, where he probably feels a little bit more at home. But when I look at Chance and I look at Roger and how I talk about it to other people, as I say, we've got 2 world-class fullbacks. There's no doubt about it. Roger's a world-class fullback. Yeah. Chance a world-class fullback because he wouldn't have run for 300 metres in the final against Australia in the Pacific Cup last year, championship. But the difference is I don't think Chance can be a world-class centre or world-class winger. Roger can be. Yeah. So if you can persevere with that a little bit longer and you have a world-class fullback and a world-class centre and winger, and 2 of those in your team, you're better for it. But there may be times where, in my opinion, they could swap around a little bit.
Yeah,
and,
gotcha.
Rog could go to fullback for a little bit, just on attack, so it just brings that little point of difference, or whether it be in the 20-metre line. But, I'm not on the same sort of money as Webby and those coaches up there, so they can decide that. And I like what they're doing and what they're persisting with. But that's my thought in and around it, because people always go, oh, Roger has to be there. And there's moments where I wrestle with that too, and I go, I love Roger to be there, but I like what Chance does, because defensively Chance does what he does when he comes into the line. It becomes an extra number, or the energy and the talk that he has at the back to move that line in a position to be sound is pretty good.
Just on Roger, and I feel like a lot of the talk around him has been that people wish he could get more involved. I feel like over the last month, we've seen his involvement levels shoot up massively. He's had a game at fullback, wing and centre throughout that month, which is not easy to do because you're moving around a lot for a guy who's coming back into the game. Is that how you've kind of seen it? He's getting his feet back under the table. He's feeling a whole lot more comfortable. He's playing centre on the weekend, but he popped up on that opposite edge. He's going looking for work.
Bang on, man, because you forget that Roger's been away from the game for 2 years, and the game has changed in 1 year, let alone 2 years or 3 years. Yes, he's a wonderful, terrific talent, and he's a student of the game. Whatever he does, he's amazing. But like anything, you got to find your time. It's time in the saddle where you feel better about it. But like I said before, when it's a different voice inside you, it's a different voice outside you, it's a different body, it's a different shape that gets thrown. Although the shape's all the same, it's a different sort of timing of different players that you have. And Roger's done extremely well, and I'm with you on that. Like this back end of the year, he's gone from strength to strength. He's feeling better for it. He's with those runs, and on the weekend, he was just popping up in the right places. And I just thought, if that's something we are going to persevere with, finding Roger. But is it centre or is it wing? Because I know at wing, we've seen with Lomax and the St. George team, you can do a lot more when you're on the wing. You get more room to roam more and to be back in position, whereas centre sometimes a little bit more difficult.
Interesting point you raised there, and you mentioned the game's changed in the last couple of years. Do you feel like wingers in a way have almost become more valuable than centres? It seems like
you
there's
can't
always...
say that, mate. Mark Graham used to say wingers were good for nothing.
Yeah, but it's crazy, isn't it? Because you see these little trends, right, where everyone wants to be a fullback, then everyone wants to be a centre because that's the position where it seems like you're getting the most action out of. Now wingers, with their yardage and then those highlight finishes, they've been given a bit more of a licence to roam, and their impact on the game seems to have skyrocketed over the last 2 years.
Well, it's either end of the field, which is where the most importance is you getting out of your own end so you can win that territory battle, but you also scoring and getting the point. So that's where wingers find themselves in a position now. Yes, they've got the very big, strong carries to start off the sets, and we're seeing across the board all the best teams have got the best, strong, carrying wingers. We've also seen them being able to diffuse a lot of the tries, and some of the tries they've scored in terms of getting up in the air eerily, it's been absolutely crazy. But yeah, it's like that. The shift or the trend has moved to the wingers to really show their ability and where they're at. Fullbacks not so long ago, and they're probably always going to be there in that position. But our wingers, in terms of what they've been doing and how they've been starting off the sets for us, it has been huge. And they're a big reason to why, the Warriors are one of the best teams in yardage throughout this whole competition.
Couple other quick shout-outs as well. Tamaiti had another strong game, 3 try assists, 160 run meters, which is huge for a 7 as well. Adam Fanua-Blake, 204 meters. That's just run-of-the-mill now. You almost don't bat an eyelid at that, which is a testament to how good he is. Wade with 46 tackles. I feel like Kurt Capewell was everywhere throughout that game as well. Mitch Barnett always putting his hand up. You got individuals having massive performances week in and week out, but we're just falling short. I think that was our 7th game where we've lost within 6 points this season. It must be so frustrating as a player, right? Because you're giving it your all, and there's a lot of boxes being ticked there, but it looks like just those little individual errors or missed tackles just at the worst possible times are really costing us.
Yeah, well, Mitch Barnett, Mr. Reliable, he dropped the ball off just to carry, and that's not what he does. He goes after the game, and he's been our best player this year. And I think most people would say that across the board, but, that's a sign of confidence, or that's a sign of where the team is at. And sometimes you don't go in there with those sort of intentions, and you're trying to do your absolute best each week to be at your best, to turn up, to play your best. Even Adam, who's been one of our strongest performers, he had a couple of possessions or dropped errors. That is something that he doesn't normally do as well. And it was nice to see Wade get out and be a little bit more lively in and around dummy half, because he had that opportunity, because other people in and around him gave him that room to get out. Tamaiti, I think the try that he almost scored before half time, that would have been a freakish try. But, he puts his body on the line, and he's been very, very good, because, he's playing through a lot of pain right now. He's a tough little pretty boy, that's for sure, Tamaiti.
He has a unique ability, right? It looks like there's nothing on at all, and it almost looks like he doesn't think there's anything on too, but he can create something either for himself or for someone else. It almost catches defenses off guard. It's like ad-lib, but within a structure.
I think he changes the tempo which he runs to the line, and sometimes it looks like he's done his... he's done his time.
Yeah, and he's just going to stop.
He's going to pass the ball off, and then he has a change of pace, and he goes again. He's got this blank look on his face, which is like, when I was teaching boxing, that you got to have the poker face. You got to be neutral, so no one knows what you're trying to do. If you don't go to them like this or engage because they can see what you're trying to do. Yeah. He sort of goes to the line with that poker face where it looks like he's going to pass, or it looks like he's going to kick, or he's done with his trying to get any further with his own run momentum. But then he just decides to go, and because he goes so deep into the line, he forces people to make a choice. And if they don't make the right choice, then he'll make them pay. But he's been wonderful as well, Tamaiti.
Wanted to touch on the golden point and the art of the field goal more in particular, because I see a lot of comments on social media, and I don't think people realize how hard it is, right, to pull off a field goal in game.
That's why when you're asking me, I'm like, bro, you're talking to the wrong guy.
I was just going to say, I'm not sure if you've had any experience at it, but there's a lot of moving factors that I don't think people account for, right? You got a split second to catch the ball, drop it onto the ground, and then onto your boot, time it perfectly. You got defenders rushing up at you. They're often not back 10 as well. They're doing everything that they can.
They're not back 10. Yeah. That's the problem now. And now the referees are really struggling with making a call.
They're too scared. They put the whistle away, right?
And that's the problem now. And that's what Warriors and other teams who probably don't go after it enough or throw caution to the wind need to understand, like, if that's the way it's going to be, you have to go for it, because they're not going to call a penalty in that situation, which doesn't make it really a fair contest. I guess it does if they're consistent across the board, because that means you got to just get off that line. But it is hard. Like, I've been involved in a few over the years, but that's only as a direct, quick play the ball. So Stacey Jones could do the honours and kick the field goal. It's a wonderful feeling when you compete for 80 minutes and then you go into extra time into golden point and you win that. Like, it's an elation that you feel like you've played 2 games to come to that point and to win that, and you do feel so much better for the result. But I've also been on the other end of that when you've lost. Sometimes you probably don't deserve to lose, and that's why sometimes I have mixed feelings on golden point.
Yeah,
because sometimes the teams deserve to take 1 point each. And maybe I'm a little bit biased, but I thought the Warriors were playing the better of the two in the weekend. Although you got to do what you need to do to close out the matches, and that's what they did very, very well. I don't think they got it in the best position for Sullivan to kick, but geez, it was a great left foot to get over that line. He was like 35, close to 40 meters out.
Yeah, that was a crazy strike.
It was a great kick.
Just on that 10 metres and teams perhaps pushing the boundaries on the offside too. We saw at the start of the year, they started to officiate obstruction, players getting in the way when it came to teams kicking field goals. Do you think there's room in the game for a bunker official to officiate on if they were onside or not? Because it's always a stoppage after that. The ball either goes dead or it's game over. Do you think the bunker should be able to come in and say they weren't back the 10 there, they've jumped early, there's a penalty?
Well, they seem to come in for a lot of other stuff in and around the actual play itself. So that is a big part of the play and the outcome of the match or that particular action. So you would think they would have reason to do that, right? They're offside or they're leaving early. But, that's also the referee to have the courage, like some of the players do in the game, to put their reputation on the line, to get it right or to get it wrong in that moment. And it's not easy. And it's not easy for the referees too, but sometimes the best referees, Bill Harrigan, all these guys who've just been inducted into the Hall of Fame, they make those calls and they live with those calls if they get it right or if they get it wrong. We've got alpha players, we've got 7s, we've got 6s, we've got 9s to step up and they do that. And if they get it right, they raise their hand and they get applauded. If they get it wrong, sometimes there's some consequence or some backlash. So you just got to aim up and put your hand up and make the call and then be accountable for that call.
All right, back to some positives. I wanted to touch on a few lads from our other teams that were in action over the weekend, the results and plus a couple standout performers. The New South Wales Cup side had a good win, 28 points to 10 over the Bunnies out at Bruce Pullman Park, and Luke Metcalf got through 80 minutes, 2 try assists, a line break, almost 400 kick metres, wearing the 7 jersey, 4 from 5 off the tee too. How have you rated Luke's return from...
You missed his 40-20. He won't be happy with you.
Oh, there we go. Shout out, Lukey, 40-20.
40-20.
40-20.
So I was there. I wanted to come down and watch Luka Metcalf play. I was there for his first 40 minutes at home, and he just brained them. When he was running the ball, just his ability, he almost scored a freakish try, but he just got held up with 4 guys who finally got to him. His feet, his footwork, his run, his kicking game in that first 40 minutes at Go Media Stadium was awesome. And then on the weekend, the kick meters, the 40-20 I was alluding to, it looks like he hasn't been out of the game for a long time. And it looks like he's been playing for the last sort of month or so. That's where he is. He was kicking goals as well. And I've always also heard him say in the previous weeks that, that's where he wants to be. He wants to be the number 7 next year. He wants to kick the boys around the park. He wants to be able to kick goals. He wants that pressure on his shoulders, and that's nice. And then we also know that his run ability is second to none. His speed and what he does. We saw Chanel Harris-Tavares coming off that left foot and set up that try assist. When he gave it to Wade, and then Wade gave it on to Demitric. So that's the sort of ability against the grain, and when you're having that running option that scatters defence and then just creates holes for others in and around you, and that's what Luke can do. He was brilliant again in the weekend.
And it is a testament to how talented he is, right? To miss 18 weeks and then come back into a high level of football like that and look like you haven't been out from the game at all. You touched on before, he wants to wear the 7. Looks like it's probably him and Tamaire battling it out for that next year, as well as a couple other guys who will no doubt put their hand up. But do you see that as a massive incentive for him over these next few weeks to really show, regardless of what team he's in, whether it's the NRL side and he plays his way in or New South Wales Cup, that he's the guy to lead this team round next year?
I hope he's not worrying too much about next year. I hope he's just thinking about now and enjoying the hard work, the fruits of his labour, because the hard work that he went through, the moments that would have been dark again, because I think last year he had some problems with his hamstrings that he went away, he corrected. He got that right because his running game was just second to none and that real ability. And we're seeing that he came back from that to get injured once again, but to be out for so long. But even in and around the place, you would not know that he's moping or that he's got his head down. He's always very present in training, and he's been there, and he's been Metcalf, who's been a good guy to have around the place. Always high energy. We did a couple of boxing sessions, but just to see the way he's played in the last game and a half, is testament to him, because he makes sure he's on. He's obviously doing his videos, doing what he needs to be doing. He's listening to the coaches, because he has not missed a beat, man.
Toby Crosby time. You touched on him earlier. I know the excitement, that clip went viral. Everyone was keen to know, A, who he was, and B, when is he making his debut in first grade? Because people get so excited when they see the highlights, don't they? But this kid is a weapon. There's rumours he broke the club bench press record or got close to it in pre-season as well. So he's a finely tuned athlete. For those that don't know a lot about Toby, because he has just made the move up from rugby and this is his first year of league, what's he like as a player, as a kid? How bright is the future without wanting to put too much pressure on him?
First and foremost, man, I don't want to put pressure on him, and he's got a lot to work on. And obviously so, because he's come from a different game into this. And I saw some of his highlights when he was playing number 8 in rugby. It was very, very reminiscent of this try he scored in the weekend off the kickoff. But he's got it all in terms of the ingredients. He's a very strong, powerfully built young man who's good at wrestling. I think that's what he does in his spare time or part-time.
I saw his Instagram. He's just wrestling for fun, right?
Yeah.
He loves it.
It wouldn't be fun wrestling against him.
No.
But just his physique, the byproduct of that physique is that's a byproduct of, hard work, commitment, understanding what's needed from you. That's high-performance body. You don't have a body like that unless you don't have that high-performance mentality. But the best thing about him, as I alluded to earlier, is the fact that he wants to be a student. He needs to come in, he needs to ask questions, because there's still parts of his game that he needs to get right, So you got to be a more holistic player. You've got to be, defensively good. You've got to be good with the ball. You've got to be a great runner. But what I like about that kid is just his attitude. He's a good person to be around, and from what I'm hearing as well, and from what I've seen, he's a great kid. And that ability, that poor fullback, when Toby made the break, he eyed him up.
That was Greg Inglis-like.
Then in a way on the fullback, and when the fullback goes, okay, I finally got to him, and then he got the palm. That was one big palm off, and he scored a try. Like, you don't normally see that sort of try. Maybe you might see it in under 14s,
club footy, right?
Club footy, but not when you're playing against NRL sides. When you're playing against fleek sides that have got these young guys with aspirations like Toby to be playing grade, mate. So it was beautiful to watch, but more important than that, Toby had probably one of his better games in and around the ball, making sure he's wrestling right, making sure he's winning his tackles, and making sure he has repeat efforts. So, it's looking very promising. And, if Toby continues to be a good student, who knows what he can achieve.
When you think of, say, Toby, Demi, Zion, Jacob Laban, Leka, there's some young talent coming through this club.
Graham Telfer.
Well, I was thinking more in the forwards in particular, and in the middle. There's some young talent in this club that could be household names for the next 10 or so years if we get their development right? And if they stay hard to the cause.
Absolutely, because not only do they have that physicality or that competitiveness to win, or that scary factor about them, they really have ability to cause havoc with the ball in hand, to defensively put on a shot. They enjoy playing with each other, and the skill sets, across the board, the skill sets are crazy anyway. But, Jacob Laban has left to right passes, right to left passes, 20 metres flat and straight and precise. And what's more important is they've got a history together, so they're going to come through, back in the Holden Cup era, or the under-20 era, when in 4 years the boys made 4 grand finals and they won 3 of them. We saw the likes of that coming through and playing well for the club, the Shauns, Bunties, Jazz Tevaga, all these types of guys that have gone on and become legends of the club. And now it's the next generation to come through and put their stamp or their mark on what the future looks like.
So we've talked about the guys coming through, and I've delayed this long enough now, but unfortunately last week one of the greats decided to hang up the boots at the end of the year. SJ, Warrior number 168, 221 games for the club, and he'll go down as one of the greats to ever wear the Warriors jersey. What were your initial reactions, emotions? What were your thoughts when you first heard the news?
Mate, I've been hanging on Shaun for a long time, and I always go and talk to him. How are you feeling? What are you thinking? Not that he's going to share everything with me, but I just want to sort of get a gauge, and I watch his mannerisms and what he does in and around training. When you say he's one of the greats, I think he's one of the greats, full stop.
Yeah.
Not just in this club, but in this club now. I put him up there with Stacey Jones. I put him up there with Simon Mannering, as I think those three have left, as players, sole players, have left a huge legacy for what they've done for the club and what they've been able to do. Shaun played this game, and I've said this multiple times before, because as a 12-year-old, he saw what Stacey Jones did. And that's all he wanted to do. But Shaun, you have passed that on to a next generation of many wonderful talents. And, he probably doesn't even know that, but the people that he sits with the likes of Demi, Jacob Laban, all these other guys, and the people that he plays against who go on to do wonderful things, they get their quotes that you see on tiles, and you hear them talk in different podcasts, and they all refer to Shaun as one of those guys that changed the game and that made them want to play the game. And that's pretty special, when you're up there with the likes of Benji Marshall, Stacey Jones, iconic people that even if you don't like this club or love the colours from afar, you just have to envy and wish that he was part of your team. And that's what SJ's done. He's taken us to a grand final in his first year, preliminary final last year. Had some wonderful seasons. Should have been Dally M last year. Golden Boot Award. Look, and the great thing about Shaun now is that he's not going to be lost in this club. Hearing that he's going to be doing stuff with the halves, he's going to be passing on that IP, that knowledge to the young and upcomers coming through. Now, to think of those young guys coming to the pathway system, and Shaun's going to be working with you on your game and what you're meant to be able to do, that is absolutely huge. A wonderful career, and just a highlight reel to die for. I don't believe there's anyone, like Benji's up there, but that will have a better highlight reel than Shaun Johnson.
I think he's got the best in the game. The best in the game. So on that, your highlight moment, and this is chucking you on the spot, but do you have like a memory or a try or just a part of his career that really stands out to you when you think of Shaun Johnson?
Well, when I just hear Cooper Crump talk about when he got turned insider in a preliminary final,
him and Proctor got done
against Shaun Johnson, and and Shaun was a big part of the reason why they got through to the grand final. When one of the GOATs, a future immortal, was saying that you can't beat that. He's saying that to camera, saying that this freak of a kid who Shaun Johnson was and did that. Don't forget, Shaun Johnson had a career before he even came into grade, for under 20s. He was a highlight reel back then, and we all watched that and admired that, and we wondered, but will he
how's
go
it going
on?
to translate?
What's he going to do?
Yeah.
And then of course, if you love the black jumper as well, that moment in the semi-final against England was to die for. So those are two moments there that. Two of bloody many that Shaun Johnson will have had. I'm trying to get him on Once a Warrior too. Imagine the highlight reel on that. We could have half an hour of just highlight reel.
Just players' clips.
He is an absolute freak. And early on in his career, I think people may forget, he used to lay the smack down too.
Yeah.
He put on some huge shots, man,
Yeah. I think one of the most impressive parts about Shaun's career too is the way he's transformed his game, the more experienced he's got. Obviously, he came in with those fast feet, that acceleration, like he just make something happen from nothing. But now he's developed into that guy who's always at the top of the try-assist ladder, kick meters, all that. One of the elite game managers and game directors. That's not an easy transition to make, and we've seen a lot of star halves struggle to do that in the past. That's just a testament to how well-rounded he is.
The very best reinvent themselves, or they work with what ability they've got. Like over the years, you don't go through the game and get out the other side unscathed, or the same young person that you were going through, especially someone who played 14 years like Shaun Johnson. But he became really one of the best game managers, one of the best kickers, and it's still one of those guys that you look around the change room and you look across and you see Shaun there for me or Stacey, and I go, man, I could feel better about my chances today as a result of SJ playing. And like I've said many times, I was up there for that semi-final against the Knights last year, where I didn't think Shaun was going to play. Shaun was doing a different warm-up to the other boys, and I don't know how long he was going to last, but he found something in him to be able to play. And then when he got off the field and when he did the deliberate long walk around, that's well deserved.
Yeah.
And man, there was a moment there I could just look in Shaun's eye, and you even see now, maybe the last home game I was calling, actually, when Shaun came out, he had that little gulp and that look in his eye, which he often has.
You could see he said something too. He was just stoked to be out there, right?
Because he obviously knew that that could be potentially his last time.
Yeah.
That was the second to last time.
Yeah.
So
I'm
looking forward for him to come back and play out there for the very last time. I'm sure it's going to be emotional, and I'm sure he's going to light it up, man.
A parade for the Prince. Another player who's announced that he's departing the club next year, still playing, not sure where yet, Jazz Tevaga. And to me, he's the definition of a warrior, right? On the field, goes hammer and tongs. He's got that never back down attitude for someone who plays in the middle, probably not the biggest body, but he's got the heart and the mongrel.
I reckon he's the smallest dude to ever play the game.
Yeah.
Like, he plays above his weight. Like, he is. Like, he's little. Like, I'm an old, skinny old man now, but like, I still feel like I'm bigger than Jazz.
Yeah.
But how he plays out there, no one's told him that he's a little guy. He's played well above his weight. And I think about how he was when he came to an open trial with all his teammates. He turns up, he has a blinder, he becomes part of, the under-20s winning grand final teams.
Yeah.
He has a career like SJ within the junior system, and he comes through and he just plays above his weight with a heart and a competitiveness that can't be rivaled. Over the years, you just got to admire that, I think people still sleep on his ability with his feet, his late footwork, and also his engine. Like, I think his dad was involved in the SAS military, because you've seen that's where Jazz been around the place. And I understand why. Now when you see Jazz, like his mindset, his ability, and the way he goes after the match now is huge. And I know he's distraught, and I know he's finding it hard. I just say to him, look, over 30 seasons, 289 odd guys to play. Unfortunately, it's a business, and there's not always a happy ending for most guys. I think there's maybe a handful of people that have gone through and have finished on their note, or how they wanted to, or when they felt it was right. But he's always going to be a legend of the club. You just got to admire him, and you think about what Shaun has done, the time Jazz has for the kids and everyone else out there as well. And I know his opponents will be have a lot of respect about Jazz too, because geez, he's been in their faces. He's been a real pest for a lot of these boys over the years.
Finally, to wrap things up, and we could probably go all day because there's been plenty going on in the world of the Warriors, hasn't there? But off the field, wrestling coach Kara-France back in the octagon this weekend. I know you love your combat sports. We've got Dan, Izzy, and Kai all in the mix in Perth. You going the clean sweep, 3 from 3, and how's Kai been lately? Because he's been out of the game for a little bit. No doubt he's keen to get back in there.
Kai is high performance to a T. He's got it sorted, not just with how he trains or how he prepares, and you see that with his physique and everything else, but just when you talk to him, and I've done a couple of interviews with him over the years, he is all about the top 2 inches, and some of his thoughts and his themes and what comes out of his head, which he lives and breathes and exudes, is why he's an absolute talent. And the club is right behind him. What he does in his time with him and John Varkin, he comes down here, and the time he gives to our boys, and he stays on for a long period of time and talks to anyone else in and around the club. He's loved around this environment. He does so much on social for this team. He just floats in about, and just in his humble way, because he's a star himself when he comes here, but it's never about him. Comes to the change room, if it's a loss, if it's a win, and he talks to everyone. So he's loved here. He's an absolute weapon in his sport, and I've admired him for a very, very long time. So for me, it's the all 3 to go really well. Izzy's an absolute goat, and Dan Hooker was the pioneer, Captain Dan Hooker, who's been doing it since forever. So man, we'll all get behind him, and we'll be busy on Sunday supporting our boys for sure.
Yeah, huge sporting weekend, right? Warriors, All Blacks, and then the UFC. You got to love that. So cheers for your time, Mons. Hope you enjoy the weekend. Hopefully some big wins for us as well, and hopefully chat to you soon again.
Ciao, bro.